But first, we're going to invite our local people to just share a few moments of their own initial reactions to what they've heard tonight, and then we'll open it to our audience here and to the people who are watching us online to share some of their questions. I should have said earlier on to everybody that Anna and Carmel are wearing masks because it's obligatory in the municipality of Porto to wear masks when colleagues are close to one another, because they're sharing the same laptop. They have to wear masks. It's really important that we understand that, and it's probably one of the reasons why Porto has far less cases of COVID than the United Kingdom at this present moment. But let's not raise that subject. Councillor Doyle, would you like to? You've got 5 minutes, and I'll.
Oh wow!
If you go over that time.
Thank you. Well, thanks for that presentation as well. It's lovely to hear from colleagues in Europe. Actually, we've had such a horrible time recently, and whatever anyone's opinion is, Brexit doesn't mean the end of our relationship with Europe. We've got a lot to learn from our friends and colleagues abroad. I've got to say, we actually share a lot in common with Porto, apart from, of course, A, the weather, and B, we have just lost our UNESCO site. But what a beautiful city that we have, regardless. We should be very proud of it. We've got a lot to learn from our neighbours. The UK is far behind in terms of sustainable initiatives. That's clear to see when you look at our public transport system. It was fascinating to see actually the amount of investment that's gone into the transport network actually throughout Europe, essentially. And we're still running on Victorian rail lines. And here in the city, of course, we're not, in my opinion, not very well connected in terms of rail in general. It's great if, of course, visitors come to the city when they go over to the Wirral, for example, New Brighton, great. But actually, one thing I quite liked in the presentation was the idea that in Porto, they're spreading their tourism around the city. We don't do that as much here. I think about, so I'm in what some people call the sticks, I suppose. I'm in East Liverpool and in the north. Croxteth Park, for example, a great visitor destination, a real jewel in our crown. And actually, we don't point visitors towards that direction. That also goes hand in hand with what we've just been talking about with regards to sustainable travel. Very hard, actually, to travel around the city. And also, we're not very visitor-friendly in terms of our bus network, no audio, no visual. It's quite, we've a lot to learn, essentially. But a couple of things I will touch on very, very quickly. I've got less than 5 minutes now, but it's interesting to talk about the local produce. I think that's one thing. We are a proud city here in Liverpool. We've got clearly a strong cultural identity. And that shows, that's one of the main reasons we know people like to come and visit the city. We are a vibrant city. We've got River of Light starting on Friday, 17 days, going to be a huge attraction for many, many people. But actually, there's a talk about markets there. I know at the moment, City Council are going through a review of our markets in the city. We don't really have, again, I believe, I'm sure that's up for comment, a destination market as such like we see across Europe. I think that's a real shame for the city because, again, it's about sustainability, and we're also talking about supporting our residents and having that strong relationship. Actually, are we supporting local businesses? Are we supporting local traders and startups by promoting them? This is a huge sector for our city, and we saw that during the lockdown, the impact that had for all of us in the city. And I think it's crucial that we ensure that is felt amongst our communities. So I take a lot from that presentation in regards to spreading the benefits. Just a couple of things on transport. What we are doing well, though, I know we're introducing our hydrogen buses across the city region soon. We've got our new train fleet, but again, there's still lots of work that we can be doing with regards to making them more user-friendly, particularly for those visiting the city. And one last thing before you stop me, tourist tax. I think that is one thing that actually we don't talk about enough. The City Council being very, very clear. We asked government in 2018, I believe, I can't remember now, it might have been 2019, to reconsider allowing cities to actually do that. But unfortunately, there's no appetite to do so. But we are exploring ways locally through legislation, through people will be aware of bid company, that we do have the opportunity to explore an accommodation bid so that actually we can work with the hospitality sector to work on a way of gaining an income and putting that straight back into the city economy. So we are, again, got a lot to learn, and I really, really do thank both for the presentation, and I hope this isn't the end of our conversation as well, and I look forward to learning a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. That was really good. I'm glad you mentioned the unmentionable tourist tax, which, why would we turn down that money?
Crazy.
Even in COVID, Porto is raising €5 million. Why would we not? I mean, and the fact that we can't do it without government approval is shocking. We need to take to the streets. We should be doing it. And the other thing which I think was really good was that the tourist tax, they have a very clear way of spending it to support the resilience of the businesses and the people who are in some way trying to make the best of the tourist offer. So it's not just going into council coffers, it's being well used. So thank you, Councillor Doyle, very much for that presentation. Laura, would you like to share your reactions to what you've heard tonight?
Absolutely. So as stated, I am the director at National Museums Liverpool, and I'm the chair of the Digital Economy Board for the City Region. But I am also a resident of the city centre, so I live down on the waterfront. And I thought it was really interesting that our colleagues in Porto started their presentation with, there isn't a tourist versus residents thing. And as the director of NML, I absolutely agree. What's good for our tourists is good for our residents. And that would absolutely be my line. And as the chair of the Digital Economy, that would be my line. What's good for residents is good for tourists, and vice versa, all the way around. But I would be lying to all of you in this room if I said that I don't utter the word bloody tourist at least once a week. Normally, at the point at which they've stopped to look at another boat on the Albert Dock when I'm trying to get to the dentist, or, you know, I'm trying to get in with my shopping, or the fact that I can't go shopping on Sunday because the roads are shut for the rock and roll marathon. Great. So all of those things cause me a challenge as a resident. So I totally understand that. And I think it's really interesting that they started that, because professionally I would say that as well. But as a resident, I do understand that there is that tension, and I feel that tension on a daily basis. I thought what was also really interesting was stuff about tourist tax. I have had a number of conversations with the current tourism minister about tourist tax as the chair of the Digital Economy Board. It's not happening. This current government will not introduce tourist tax. And I agree to some degree that every other city in Europe, and in fact in America and in other parts of the world, tourist tax is a very accepted thing. But I do not see that being part of UK policy. The bid, however, I think is a way of us doing that without calling it a tourist tax. I think we just extended the bid district to include a much broader area that's generating £6 million over a 5-year period, which is fantastic. I think where Porto, though, highlighted a real issue for us, the next step of the bid, as I'm sure some of you in the room will be aware, is to look at an accommodation bid. And so to look at working with hoteliers within the bid district to, in effect, put in a tax on bed nights, basically. The challenge with that, and why our hospitality sector, who are supportive of supporting the tourism industry more broadly, it's good for their business. But the challenge is what Porto talked about. I think they called it local accommodation. And that's our Airbnb stuff, isn't it? And any tourist tax or hospitality bid wouldn't include Airbnbs. And that is a major issue for us in the city, because Airbnbs are a massive part of the city's ecology in terms of bed nights. So it's something that I think we're going to have to tackle. And it's interesting to hear that Porto have tackled that in a different way. They include that local accommodation in their I was interested in the stuff they said about transport, and Councillor Doyle picked that up. I think it's really interesting. I've lived all over, I was born here in Liverpool. I came back 3 years ago, but I've lived all over the UK, and it always amuses me how every city moans about their transport being rubbish. And I can assure you that Liverpool's transport system is actually one of the best I've ever experienced in the whole of the UK. Okay, so yes, it has its problems, but honestly, you try living in Warwickshire or Bristol or Lancaster. I promise you, these cities have worse tourism links, worse transport links. I think the challenge with our transport links, which is a challenge for us as residents, but is actually quite good for tourists, is all roads lead to the city centre. So if you're in the city centre and you want to get to Crosby to see another place, it's quite easy to do that. If you're in the city centre and you want to go to the Grand National, it's quite easy to do that. If you're in the city centre and you want to go to New Brighton, it's quite easy to do that. Where it's a challenge is if you are in Crosby and you want to go to Anfield or the Grand National or whatever, that's a challenge. That cross-city stuff is a challenge. So I think whilst our transport system needs improvement, undoubtedly, I think let's recognise that what we have is actually a million times better. Other cities in the UK would kill for what we have in terms of the Merseyrail network, and our bus network actually isn't as bad as we all think it is. I think where we need to improve is around sustainable transport. Trying to ride a bike in a city is really hard work, and I say that as a cyclist, really difficult. I am a fan of the scooters, having done my scooter test, I'll have you all know, and always wearing my helmet because I'm terrified of coming off it. But we need to do more on that sustainability stuff, and Porto gave us some really great examples of sustainable transport. One final point to finish on that I thought was fascinating, when they talked at the very end about their branding and their brand of Porto. And I thought, yes, exactly, because what else would you brand with? And let's be honest, and we have this conversation certainly across the city region all the time. Of course, we're going to brand with Liverpool, because with the greatest respect to our boroughs, our attack brand is Liverpool. And so we need to follow Porto's lead there and lead with Liverpool.
Thank you. That's really enthusiastic and enjoyed listening to your comments. I want to take you up on Airbnb, because while an issue may be how could we tax the Airbnb, one of the problems with Airbnb in cities of over-tourism is that the city centres become places where only Airbnb can be rented. You cannot rent accommodation. So the local population are priced out. That hasn't happened to a great extent in Liverpool yet, but it is starting to happen. Plus also where the Airbnb is situated. If it's in a predominantly residential apartment complex, big problems. When you live with people coming in and out all the time, it's a no-no. And Liverpool City, sorry, I'm not lecturing you here.
No, I was just going to, can I just respond and say, I absolutely agree with you. I moved back to the city 3 years ago. I wanted to live on the waterfront. I chose to live in a place on the waterfront that doesn't allow Airbnb, that doesn't allow you to do that, because I want to live here. This is my home. I want to shut my door and know that I'm at home and not deal with the stag or hen party that's just come in at 3 in the morning. And so I totally see that point.
And that's an issue that the City Council need to work on. And the other thing is it prices the Airbnb, unless it's controlled, prices ordinary people out of renting in the city centre, because the landlords can get more rent from an Airbnb, renting at exorbitant rates for a few nights a week than for a 6-month or 12-month period. And that's why what's interesting in Porto is that they've got this local accommodation issue to repopulate the city centre and enable even people who need social housing support. They can live in the city centre as well. We've priced that out completely of our city centre, which is a real issue. So we've got issues with accommodation that we do need to address. But thank you very much to Laura for that comment there. And finally, Dr Takamitsu Jimura, the academic, and next time we'll have another academic. I don't know, how does an academic relate to what you've heard? You're in Liverpool, you're lecturing in tourism. How does Porto impact on your situation?
I'm a resident here and also academic, and also I've been to Porto 9 years ago. But probably I think the city already seen a lot of improvement in the sustainability matters, I think, and particularly transport. It's very impressive. And my view is as as a heritage and tourism researcher, probably I need to touch upon the World Heritage Site. So the Porto is 1996 and was listed as World Heritage Site and Historic Center for the Porto. And but on the other hand, our city, and unfortunately, we lost and World Heritage status in this July. And currently, across the world, number of World Heritage sites. How many do you think? How many World Heritage sites in the world? Now it's more than 1,000 World Heritage sites, including cultural, natural, and mixed sites. And but so far, including Liverpool, only 3 sites lost the status. So the only one before us, only one cultural site, it's lost the status is Dresden, Elbe Valley in Germany. So main reason was, and it's always balancing between conservation matters or we pursue the better life convenient for the local residents. So in the case of Dresden, always city was suffering from the traffic congestion, particularly evening time and morning time. And then, of course, if they wanted to conserve, they wanted to retain the status, but as a result, probably they put more importance on the residents' voice. And then they decided to build a new bridge. But Dresden was listed as cultural landscape, so large areas, and then building bridge. It's UNESCO's view, of course. But they think this actually damage or harm the cultural landscape. So, of course, it's waterfront development is, of course, important. And then if I link this back to the link to sustainability matters, this is the focus of our event. Probably waterfront development, including new stadium, such as Everton's new stadium. This is, of course, I think this is beneficial for the economic sustainability, creating jobs and attracting people and the locals and also the tourists as well. But there are 2 more main pillars of sustainability, including social and cultural sustainability. So losing status is how this can affect the social and cultural sustainability of the city. So this is a big question for me. And I'd like to know what's going on, yes. And actually, and I'd like to ask today's attendees, and it depends. But for example, how much are you actually proud of living in World Heritage City? Or maybe some people just do not care. And also tourists as well, because Liverpool is already established with business. So probably even without World Heritage status, still very much popular and have a power to attract people. But maybe some people, some tourists who are interested in culture and heritage might be disappointed because our city lost the status. So this is my point. And also the tourist tax, this is also good for to enhance the economic sustainability. So as mentioned, it's widely introduced in Europe and also in my home country, Japan, in some cities, and Italy, and also introduced, yes. And but I personally want to know how the accommodation sectors, hotel sectors in Porto, how they responded to the introduction of the tourist tax. Because once I had an interview with Italian hotels, they are not happy with introduction of the tourist tax. Of course, the money goes to the township, goes to the government, but the people, person who receives the tax is the hotels. So actually, they try to explain this is not our money. This is goes to it's a laser parts, but still, and adding extra fees. Yes, some hoteliers are a bit reluctant to do that. Yes, so this is of course there's pros and cons, everything, but this is my view. Yeah.